What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond the pet cemetery ain't human at all.
Stephen King's masterpiece, Pet Sematary, has managed to keep its nerve-shredding aura intact even 35 years after its release. The true horror of the narrative doesn't lie solely in the supernatural elements the film presents. Rather, it's an exploration of universal human experiences that Pet Sematary truly shines and sends shivers down our spines. The detailed portrayal of the Creed family's grief, the unnerving fear of death and loss, and the horrifying notion of a beloved one returning from the grave as something drastically changed are the film elements that continue to haunt audiences today. However, not only was the novel something that King had frowned upon, vowing it to be too dark to release, but studios also felt that no one would be interested in seeing it on the big screen. Oh my god, they were wrong. Here are 5 things about 1989's Pet Sematary that you may not have, or probably, heard of. The Ramones. As the credits roll at the end of the film, you hear 2 songs that seem slightly out of place with the film that we just watched. Both songs are by the Ramones. The first is Pet Sematary, and it has an interesting backstory and how it came about. Stephen King was a huge Ramones fan and invited the band to his home in Bangor, Maine, prior to making the film adaptation. At one point during their meeting, King handed bassist Dee Dee Ramone a copy of the book. Dee Dee retreated to King's basement, and within an hour, he had the lyrics to the song Pet Sematary. If you heard this story before, I have news for you. It's false. In fact, King revealed in an interview with Rolling Stone, "We didn't eat at my house. They never even came to the house. We ate at Miller's Restaurant, the only fancy restaurant in Bangor. I don't remember if we talked about Pet Sematary. I might have said something about a song." After the song was released and King heard the story about how the song came to be, King later said to his publisher, "This story about them coming to my house is total bullshit. Don't change a fucking word though. It's like James Stewart in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. When the truth and legend are in opposition, print the legend." So the true story is that director Mary Lambert, who was a music video director and was friends with Dee Dee Ramone, had asked him if he would write a song for the film. And 24 hours later, it was done. The song Pet Sematary would become the band's biggest hit, landing at number 4 on the Billboard charts. The original ending. As studios tend to do, they poke their noses in it, but this time they were right. The studio requested changes to the film's ending, desiring a more frightening conclusion. In the initial version, Louis Creed still kills his son with the morphine and sets Judd Crandall's house ablaze after the death of his wife. Consumed by grief and erroneously believing Rachel's death would be alleviated by burial in the ancient cemetery, he buries her mere hours after her passing, believing that there was still time to resurrect her without any changes to her personality. Unfortunately, a malevolent undead version of Rachel returns to the house, embraces Louis, and draws a blade. In the proposed original ending, it featured a lackluster final scene of an undead Rachel entering the kitchen as Louis played solitaire followed by the credits.
Where's Gage? Gage! Gage!
No, you don't, my friend. Not in that road.
Based on a true story. Living in a rented house near Arlington, Maine, in 1979, Stephen King was situated next to a dangerous truck route that often resulted in the deaths of innocent pets.
I live just across the road. You want to watch out for that road. Them damn trucks go back and forth all day and most of the night.
Behind his residence, local children had fashioned an impromptu animal graveyard, and little did he know that he was about to use it. Tragically, King's daughter's cat became one of the many victims of the treacherous road. As he buried the cat in the children's pet cemetery, King couldn't help but wonder what would happen if a father buried his daughter's pet in a similar way, but then found the animal miraculously resurrected the next day, though no longer the same. After this experience, King's son, Owen, had a near-fatal encounter with a speeding truck that allowed King's earlier idea to become fully developed. King couldn't shake the image of a pet or child returning from the dead, and this idea tormented him both awake and asleep. One night, he dreamed of a walking corpse patrolling the nearby highway by his house.
Yeah, that's a good story. A good walk. I'll take you up there sometime. Tell you the story, too. After you get settled in.
The studios thought Stephen King movies were dead at the box office. Despite development executive Lindsay Doran's admiration for the script in 1985, Embassy Pictures and Paramount Pictures both declined to make it due to the supposed lack of demand for Stephen King's adaptations and his diminishing box office returns. The studios at the time thought that Stephen King's bubble had burst. It wasn't until 3 years later, in 1988, when the Writers Guild of America strike struck. Paramount faced the possibility of a shortage of new productions, and they were forced to reconsider the script due to not having any completed scripts ready to go. The studio granted Doran permission to obtain the rights and begin production. The studio tried to force their will onto the production of the film by trying to dictate the filming location and pushing back against the casting of Fred Gwynne as Judd, saying that nobody would be able to separate him from Herman Munster. They were against Miko Hughes as Gage. But fortunately for us, Stephen King and director Mary Lambert were a formidable force together, and they stood their ground and got what they wanted. The direct sequel. Paramount eagerly sought to build on the success of Pet Sematary and enlisted Mary Lambert to helm the sequel. Lambert's initial vision centered around Ellie Creed, the lone survivor of their previous film, who would grow up in Chicago unaware of the tragic events involving her parents due to her grandparents keeping it a secret. Eventually, the mystery around their past would take hold and she would return to Maine as an adult with her feline companion to investigate her family's untimely demise. Regrettably, Paramount felt uncertain about a young woman taking the lead, so the story was revised to introduce an all-new cast and a male protagonist, culminating in the selection of the 13-year-old Edward Furlong for the principal role, seeking to capitalize off his recent success of Terminator 2. Wow, they shot themselves in the foot here, because we lost out on probably a fantastic sequel. And don't get me started about Mary Lambert and why she didn't get a chance to do more horror films. So will you be watching Pet Sematary for its anniversary? Will you watch the second one? Will you watch the remake? And did you like the remake better than the original? I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to say no, so don't beat me up in the comments for that one. But what are some other things that you know about 1989's Pet Sematary? drop it in the comments. Let me know. Let's start a conversation about it, because that scene with Gage still haunts me to this day, damn it. Anyway, don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment. If you're not subscribed, please do so. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Pop 5. And until the next, see ya.